Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. I can dump him anytime. He is just a wallet I have not emptied yet. Clarissa whispered to her friends, her laughter sharp enough to cut through the night. The floor-to-ceiling windows of the downtown Chicago penthouse reflected the city's winter lights behind her, but Wesley stood just out of sight in the hallway, frozen in place. To her, this was a private performance, a moment of cruel honesty shared over expensive wine. To him, it was the moment his entire marriage shattered. What Clarissa did not know was that her husband, Wesley King, was only a few steps away, hidden in the dim corridor leading to the dining area. He had come out of their bedroom to grab his phone charger, half distracted, thinking about an early morning meeting. But when he heard his name drip from her lips in that mocking tone, instinct made him stop. He pressed his shoulder against the wall and listened, each word digging into him like glass. "Come on, Clarissa," Shanice said, swirling her wine. "You cannot be serious. You two look perfect together. Everybody says it." Clarissa scoffed, leaning back into the cream leather sofa, eyes glittering with arrogance. "Perfect is what people see on social media and at galas," she said calmly. "Reality is different. Men like Wesley think they are in control, but really, he's just a wallet I have not emptied yet." Lola and Patrice burst into laughter, the sound echoing off marble and glass. "So you are not in love with him at all?" Patrice asked, more curious than judgmental. Her eyes flickered toward the hallway, as if she sensed something, but she did not see Wesley standing there, hidden in the shadows. That Clarissa's voice was steady, almost proud. "Love," she said with a soft, dismissive laugh. "Love does not pay for vacations, handbags, or rent. Wesley thinks I am his queen. I'm just biding my time. When I am done, he will not even know what hit him." Every syllable landed like a dagger in Wesley's chest. 8 years of marriage flashed through his mind in a rush of images. Exchanging vows in a small Chicago chapel, late-night talks over takeout, the way she had cried when they moved into this very penthouse. He had believed her tears, her promises, her quiet, "I will always have your back," on their anniversary. Now he realized those memories were props on a stage he had not known he was standing on. Wesley's hand tightened around the doorframe. For a moment, rage surged through him. The urge to walk into the living room, to confront her and her friends in front of their wine glasses and smug expressions, clawed at him. He imagined the silence that would fall, the way her laughter would die, the way her eyes would widen. But something in him, something older and colder than anger, held him still. He had built a career as a real estate strategist, structuring multi-million-dollar deals in Chicago and across the Midwest. He had learned the cost of moving too fast, of locking into a contract without reading the fine print, of reacting instead of planning. Emotional outbursts ruined negotiations. Impulse could destroy fortunes. As his breathing slowed, that professional instinct slipped into his personal life. This is not the moment, he thought. Not yet. He stepped back from the hallway and walked, silent as a shadow, to their bedroom. The city lights washed the room in a glow as he sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the framed wedding photo on the dresser. Clarissa's smile in the picture was wide and radiant, her eyes locked on his. He studied it like he studied a property map, looking for cracks he had missed. Down the hall, the laughter continued. "He really does not suspect anything?" Lola asked. "He is too busy working," Clarissa replied. "He loves that I look good on his arm, that I know which fork to pick up at those boring dinners. He has no idea I'm planning my exit. By the time I'm done, I will walk away with more than I came with. That is the point." Wesley lay down on the bed fully dressed, staring at the ceiling. Her words replayed in his mind on a loop. He felt nauseated, but beneath the sickness, something else grew. Clarity. This was no longer a marriage. It was a transaction, and she had already decided her strategy. What she had not considered was that the man she had treated like a clueless provider understood strategy better than anything else. When Clarissa finally came to bed, the night had grown quiet. She slipped into the room smelling of perfume and Cabernet, her heels clicking softly on the hardwood floor. Wesley closed his eyes halfway, pretending to be deep in thought. She sat beside him and brushed his arm. "You're still awake?" she asked. "Just thinking about work," he said evenly. He leaned in and kissed her forehead, gentle, controlled. "Good night." She smiled, relaxed, and turned away to plug in her phone. "You worry too much," she murmured as she settled under the covers. "Everything is fine." Wesley watched her breathing slow. Everything is not fine, he thought. But there was no shouting, no accusations. While she slept peacefully beside him, he quietly began mapping a different kind of plan, one that did not involve pleading, begging, or rage. It would involve patience. It would involve proof. And it would end with her facing the truth in a way she would never forget. By morning, his expression had returned to the familiar calm she trusted. The kitchen smelled of freshly brewed coffee, and the skyline beyond their windows was pale and cold. Clarissa sat in her silk robe at the kitchen island, sipping her almond milk latte and scrolling through her phone. She smiled at a text from Shanice, thumbs moving quickly. "I have been thinking," Wesley said casually as he slid a plate of scrambled eggs in front of her. His tone was light, practiced. "Maybe we should expand. Buy another property downtown. Something high-end. It is a good time to move funds, position some assets differently." Clarissa's eyes lit up instantly. She set her phone down, completely engaged. "Really? Where?" she asked, leaning forward, excitement sharpening her features. "Somewhere near the river," he said. "Something classy. I will handle the details. You just relax and enjoy it when it is done." She smiled, a slow, satisfied curve. "This is why I married you," she said with a soft laugh. "You think big." She picked up her latte again, already imagining the new place, the new furniture, the way her friends' faces would light up when she showed them around. Wesley smiled back, but inside, his intentions were different. The new accounts he would open, the restructuring he would initiate, would look like expansion to her. In reality, they would be a careful withdrawal, an untying of knots she thought were permanent. The first step in his revenge was simple: observe and prepare. For weeks, he played his part flawlessly. He kissed her goodbye in the mornings, sent flowers to her office in the Loop, and reserved tables at their favorite restaurants in River North. Clarissa had no reason to suspect that he had heard anything that night. If anything, his extra effort made her feel even more secure. She thought he was still orbiting around her, blind and devoted. At dinner one evening, while they sat in a dim corner of an upscale steakhouse, Clarissa talked about a planned girls' trip to Miami. "We need a break," she said, twirling the stem of her wine glass. "Just sun, beaches, and shopping. You can survive without me for a long weekend." "I'm sure I can," Wesley replied, smiling. "You deserve to enjoy yourself." His tone was warm, but his eyes were measuring her, studying the way she smiled at the idea of being away from him. Behind the scenes, he began shifting money. Paychecks that had once flowed into their joint account were rerouted to a separate account bearing only his name. Investments were quietly moved into trusts she knew nothing about. He met with his attorney in a quiet office overlooking Millennium Park, laying out everything he had heard, everything he suspected, and everything he planned to do. "You are certain you want to go this route?" the attorney asked, adjusting his glasses as he scanned the preliminary documents. "This will take time. It will require discipline." "That is exactly why I am here," Wesley said. "I am done being the joke of my own life. I am not going to yell. I'm not going to break things. I'm going to separate myself from her lies carefully, and when this ends, she will walk away with only what is fair." The attorney nodded slowly. "Then we will begin by securing what you have built," he said. "We will make sure that any property that can be moved into your sole control is moved. We will document everything. Every charge, every hotel stay, every unexplained expense." He slid a notepad across the table. "Start keeping a record, no matter how small it seems." Wesley did exactly that. He checked bank statements with a level of focus he had never bothered to apply to his personal accounts before. That was when he discovered the unfamiliar credit card. It was in Clarissa's name, connected to a billing address he did not recognize, a small mailing center in another neighborhood. The charges were impossible to ignore: luxury boutiques, spa packages, and hotel bills he had not authorized. One hotel in particular made him stop cold. A high-end boutique hotel just off Michigan Avenue. The dates on the statement matched nights Clarissa had insisted she was out with friends or attending networking events. He felt something inside him settle. This was not just emotional manipulation or greed. This was deception on every level. That night, while Clarissa did her skincare routine in the bathroom, humming softly and scrolling through her social media, Wesley sat at the edge of the bed with his laptop. He pulled up the statement again, memorizing the details. When she slid under the covers, smelling of citrus and expensive lotion, she pressed closer to him. "You were quiet tonight," she said, tracing a finger along his arm. "Just tired," he replied. "Long day of calls. A few deals in Indianapolis and Detroit are getting messy." She kissed his shoulder lightly. "You always handle it," she said. "You always fix everything." He turned his head and looked at her. Her face was soft in the low bedside light, eyes half-lidded, completely unaware that he now knew she had been in a hotel with someone else. "I do my best," he said. "Good night, Clarissa." As she drifted off, he thought, "I'm going to fix this too, just not in the way you expect." The next day, he requested itemized receipts from the hotel under the guise of clarifying fraudulent activity. When the emailed copies arrived, they included room service charges for two, a bottle of champagne, and spa appointments for 2 people. He printed them and slid them into a folder he kept hidden in a locked drawer in his home office. He started paying closer attention to her friends. Shanice, with her constant money struggles despite her designer accessories. Lola, who loved gossip more than anything. Patrice, who studied business and always asked curious questions about Wesley's projects. At dinners and gatherings, he listened more than he spoke, watching how they looked at Clarissa, how they leaned in when she talked about their lifestyle. One evening, as the 4 of them sat in the living room, Clarissa perched on the arm of the sofa, her friends scattered with wine glasses in hand. Wesley tested his first deliberate line. "You know," he said in an almost offhand tone, "I would trust Clarissa with everything I own." He looked at her with soft eyes, masking the hard edge beneath. Clarissa smiled instantly, smug and radiant. "And you should," she replied, twirling her glass. "You have a good woman." Shanice laughed. "Not everyone would say that about you, Clarissa, but sure," she joked. Clarissa threw a cushion at her playfully, but her face glowed with pride. She believed her own performance so deeply that she did not notice the trap forming beneath her feet. The first external crack appeared at a family dinner a few weeks later. Wesley's younger sister, Naomi, had always been protective of her brother. She eyed Clarissa with polite warmth but a sharp, discerning gaze. The family gathered at Wesley and Clarissa's place for roasted chicken and conversation. The penthouse buzzed with voices and clinking dishes. Every time someone praised Wesley's recent real estate successes, Clarissa redirected the credit. "Well, I encouraged him to make that move," she said with a smirk at one point. "Honestly, he would not be where he is without me. I push him." Naomi's eyes narrowed. She said nothing, but Wesley caught the flicker of irritation across her face. Across the table, their mother watched quietly, her expression unreadable. After the guests left, Naomi lingered. She stood near the window, with Wesley while Clarissa tidied up in the kitchen, humming and stacking plates louder than necessary. "You look tired," Naomi said gently, folding her arms. "Is everything all right?" He took a slow breath. "Everything is under control," he replied. "I've just had a lot on my mind." There was a certain weight in his tone that made her pause. "Under control is not the same as all right," she said quietly. "I'm not going to push. But if you need me, you know I am here." She squeezed his arm, then left for the night. Wesley watched her go, grateful and determined. He would need her later. For now, he kept his secrets close. The second crack showed up in the form of money. A few days later, Clarissa walked into the kitchen with a tight jaw and her phone clutched in her hand. "Wesley," she said, trying to sound casual, "did you move the funds from our joint account? The balance is lower than it should be." He looked up from his coffee, his expression a perfect blend of mild concern and distraction. "Really? That is odd," he said. "Maybe it is a bank error. I will check with him." Clarissa studied his face, searching for a hint of guilt, but his calm was flawless. His eyes did not dart away. His hands did not fidget. After a moment, she forced a smile. "All right," she said. "Please handle it. I had some things planned." "Of course," Wesley replied. "I will make a few calls." Inside, he knew the transfers had been intentional and precisely timed. Another quiet inch of control had slipped from her hands. As the weeks went on, Clarissa's patterns became bolder. She announced more girls' nights, more late dinners, more networking mixers. Wesley did not question them. If anything, he encouraged them. One Friday evening, as she slipped on red heels and a fitted black dress, she checked her reflection in the hallway mirror. "How do I look?" she asked, adjusting her earrings. "Beautiful," he said sincerely. "Have fun. Text me if you need anything." He placed the keys to her newer car in her hand, the one he had bought 6 months earlier. She smirked. "Do not wait up," she said, kissing his cheek with a confidence that made his resolve tighten. Then she walked out, perfume trailing behind her. Wesley did not wait up. He followed. He kept a careful distance as he drove through the glowing streets, watching her car turn into the entrance of a downtown hotel, the same one whose name had stared up from the credit card bill. Shanice and Patrice got out of the car with her, laughing and adjusting their dresses, and the three of them disappeared inside. He sat in his car across the street, hands on the steering wheel, jaw clenched. He did not storm into the lobby. He did not demand answers at the front desk. He already had the receipts. The reality was loud enough. Instead, he watched the hotel entrance, noting the time, letting the image of her walking through those glass doors burn into his memory. The next morning, she breezed into the kitchen with sunglasses on despite the soft light, her voice overly cheerful. "Late night," she said, stretching. "Girls' dinner ran long. You know how we are. I trust you," Wesley said quietly as he set a plate of pancakes in front of her. The words hung in the air between them, double-edged. She heard affirmation. He heard a lie he no longer believed. Clarissa smiled, satisfied, and dug into her breakfast. But something inside her shifted, just slightly. His tone had been too calm, too measured. His eyes had been unreadable. For a second, a flicker of unease surfaced, but she pushed it away. She had built her entire life on the belief that she could control the narrative. Wesley knew timing was everything. The first phase, observation, financial restructuring, documentation, was mostly complete. The next phase would be psychological. He decided to give her exactly what she wanted, freedom without visible consequence. That was how arrogance grew. That was how a fall became devastating. "You should go out more," he told her one evening as they sat on the balcony overlooking the city. The wind was crisp, lights shimmering below. "I have late meetings this month anyway. Go to dinners, see your friends. Enjoy yourself." Clarissa turned to look at him. "You sure?" she asked, a slow smile spreading. "You are not going to get all needy on me." He chuckled softly. "I can manage," he said. "I trust you." The phrase, "I trust you," became his careful refrain. It made her careless. She started staying out later, sometimes not coming home until nearly dawn. Her explanations were thin: traffic, last-minute after-parties, a friend who drank too much and needed to be driven home. Wesley nodded, listened, and said very little. While she thought she was living her best life, he was building his case. He photographed hotel receipts. He quietly accessed her laptop when she carelessly left it open and took screenshots of flirtatious messages, heart emojis, and conversations that danced close to the edge of explicit. He copied every piece of evidence into a secure folder and forwarded it to his attorney. The second phase also involved her social circle. Clarissa's power came not just from money, but from admiration. Shanice, Lola, and Patrice did not only approve of her choices, they fed her ego. Wesley understood that if you wanted to collapse a queen's influence, you first removed her court. So he began with subtle doubts. At Shanice's birthday party, held at a trendy rooftop bar in Chicago's West Loop, Wesley arrived alone. Clarissa had texted last minute that she was exhausted and would not make it. He greeted everyone warmly, bought a round of drinks, and listened more than he talked. Whenever someone asked about Clarissa, he smiled faintly. "She has just been distant lately," he said gently at one point, speaking to a small group that included Lola. "Spending a lot of time away from home, going out more. I just hope she's all right. She says everything is fine." He did not accuse her of anything. He did not hint at betrayal. He only sounded concerned. The comments spread without his having to push them. Within weeks, whispers about Clarissa's strange behavior began to move quietly through her social circle. Her friends told their friends. The shine around her started to dull, even if she did not notice it immediately. The foundation of admiration she relied on had begun to crack. The third phase of Wesley's plan was emotional. One night, he came home carrying a bouquet of her favorite white lilies. He cooked dinner: roast salmon, roasted vegetables, a bottle of wine he had been saving. Clarissa walked into the kitchen and stopped, genuinely surprised. "What is all this?" she asked. "No occasion," he said, looking at her with steady eyes. "I just love you, that is all." Her smile flickered for a brief second before settling. "Well, that is sweet," she replied, kissing his cheek. But as they ate, a small knot of discomfort twisted in her stomach. There had been no fight to make up for, no milestone to celebrate. The sudden affection felt like a light shone into a dark room. Wesley watched her across the table, noting the way her fingers tapped her glass slightly faster than usual, the way she avoided eye contact when he told her he appreciated everything she did. His kindness was not punishment. It was a mirror. The more gently he treated her, the louder her guilt rang in the silence. Slowly, her life began to feel out of alignment. Her friends seemed less present. One by one, they started canceling plans. "Sorry, something came up," texted Patrice. "I have a lot going on," wrote Lola. Even Shanice became less available. The joint account she had once depended on felt unreliable, the balance never quite what she expected. Still, Clarissa believed she was in control. That belief held until the night Wesley delivered his first deliberate blow. She was getting ready to go out again, touching up her lipstick in the mirror by the door. Wesley approached her holding a plain, white envelope. "In case you need it tonight," he said gently, placing it in her hand. She frowned, curious, and tore it open. Inside was a printed hotel receipt from the boutique hotel near Michigan Avenue, dated 3 nights earlier. Her heart lurched. "What is this?" she asked, forcing a laugh that did not reach her eyes. "Why are you giving this to me?" Wesley stepped closer, his expression calm, his voice low. "Just a reminder, Clarissa," he said. "Every secret leaves a trail." For the first time in a long time, she felt real fear. Her hand trembled as she held the paper. "Wesley, this is ridiculous," she said quickly. "You know that was a misunderstanding." "Of course," he replied, his tone almost soothing. "You do not have to explain anything." He kissed her cheek and turned away, leaving her standing motionless in the entryway, the door still unlocked, her plans evaporating. That night, she did not go out. She sat on the sofa instead, staring at the receipt on the coffee table. Her mind ran through every detail. What he might have seen, what he might have guessed, who might have told him. Outside, the city hummed as usual, but inside the penthouse, the silence was unnerving. From that point on, Clarissa moved differently. She paused when Wesley spoke, watched his face longer, tried to decode his politeness. Her phone calls with Shanice and Lola grew shorter, more guarded. Yet she still clung to the belief that she could talk her way out of anything if pressed. She had done her whole life. Wesley, however, knew that the time for financial escalation had come. On a bright Monday morning, he sat at his desk and calmly called their bank. In soft, measured tones, he froze every joint account, every shared credit card, and even the emergency fund she had once boasted about managing. To the bank, it looked like precautionary security measures. To him, it was the tightening of a noose. By Thursday, Clarissa stormed into his home office, her heels clicking loudly against the floor. "What is going on?" she demanded, holding up her phone. "My car was declined at Saks today. Do you know how embarrassing that was?" Wesley looked up from his laptop with a mild frown. "Really? That is strange," he said. "Banks have been glitchy lately. Do not worry, I will handle it." "Wesley, I am serious," she insisted, stepping closer. "I had to put things back." People were staring. He leaned back in his chair, folding his hands. "I understand it was uncomfortable," he said calmly. "Let me make some calls. I'm sure it will be sorted." His tone was so measured that she had no concrete accusation to throw at him. Clarissa left the room in a storm of perfume and frustration, but inside, panic was growing. Money was not just comfort for her, it was identity. The idea that she might lose her effortless access to it sliced at her confidence. For the first time, she began to worry that Wesley's apparent blindness had limits. Wesley's next move targeted her image. At a Sunday brunch hosted by Naomi in Hyde Park, he arrived holding Clarissa's hand, every inch the attentive husband. The table was filled with family and a few close friends, the smell of waffles and coffee in the air. Clarissa played the part perfectly, laughing at jokes, sprinkling compliments. Halfway through, As the conversation shifted to relationships and loyalty, Wesley set down his fork and spoke just loud enough for everyone to hear. "I really do not know how I would survive without Clarissa," he said, looking at his wife. "Even when times get tough, I trust her with everything." The table went quiet for a beat. Several pairs of eyes flicked to Clarissa. Her smile tightened, and her fingers tensed around her glass. "That is sweet," Naomi said slowly, watching Clarissa more than Wesley. The words were kind, but there was a weight beneath them. After brunch, Naomi pulled Clarissa aside near the kitchen. "Is everything all right?" she asked, her tone firm. "You seem off lately." Clarissa scoffed lightly, but her voice lacked its usual bite. "Everything is fine," she said. People love to read into nothing. Within days, rumors began to travel along quiet family channels. Wesley never said anything explicit. He did not need to. He let the evidence sit under the surface while he kept acting like a man trying to hold his marriage together. In contrast, Clarissa's defensiveness, sudden distance from her friends, and unexplained tension did the rest. Clarissa confronted him late one night, pacing the living room in leggings and an oversized sweatshirt. "Did you say something to them?" she demanded. "Why are my friends acting different? Why does Naomi look at me like she knows something?" Wesley sat on the sofa, hands resting on his knees. "Clarissa, sometimes people drift apart," he said softly. "Maybe everyone is just busy. Do not worry. You will always have me." The words landed like a warning rather than comfort. "You will always have me," echoed in her mind long after she went to bed. It sounded less like a promise and more like a sentence. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how much control she truly had left. The breaking point arrived unexpectedly on an ordinary afternoon. Clarissa returned from shopping trip carrying cheap handbags instead of her usual designer pieces. As she stepped into the penthouse, she froze. Movers were in the living room, carefully packing boxes. Her eyes widened. "What is going on?" she asked sharply. "Who are these people?" Wesley stood near the dining table, signing a document on a clipboard. He turned to her with a calm expression. "Nothing serious," he said. "I am rearranging assets, moving some things out of the joint property into my private holdings. Just being cautious." Her breath hitched. "Are you leaving me?" she asked, voice cracking despite her attempt to sound composed. He tilted his head slightly, studying her like a chess player considering a final move. "Clarissa," he said slowly, "I would never leave you unless you gave me a reason." Then he turned away, leaving her standing alone amid half-packed boxes. The movers continued their work while she clutched her shopping bags, her world tilting around her. That night, Clarissa barely slept. For years, she had believed she controlled every thread of this marriage: the money, the image, the narrative. Now, she felt those threads slipping out of her hands one by one, and she did not know how to grasp them again. Wesley moved around the penthouse with maddening composure, speaking kindly but never carelessly. The final act of Wesley's plan required an audience. Clarissa's empire had been built on applause, admiration, and carefully crafted impressions. To dismantle it completely, the truth would need witnesses. The opportunity came when Wesley's company organized a high-profile charity gala at a luxurious hotel in downtown Chicago. Clarissa thrived at events like that. She spent days choosing an emerald gown, booking hair and makeup, rehearsing how she would talk about their solid marriage. "We will look incredible," she said one evening, holding the dress in front of the mirror. "People will remember us." Wesley smiled faintly. "I am sure they will," he replied. For a long time, the ballroom shimmered with chandeliers and polished marble on the night of the gala. Guests and formal were moved through the space with glasses of champagne in hand. Wesley and Clarissa entered arm in arm, photographers capturing their arrival. Clarissa smiled brilliantly, greeting investors and family friends, laughing at small talk as if nothing in her life were out of place. Midway through the event, Wesley took the stage to address the crowd. He thanked donors, praised his team, and spoke about the importance of community support. Then his tone shifted just slightly. "There is something I have learned about loyalty," he said, voice steady and clear. "It is not just about business. It is about who stands beside you when no one is watching. And sometimes the people we trust most turn out to be wearing masks." A ripple moved through the room. Clarissa's smile froze where she stood near the front table, her knuckles tightening around her glass. Wesley did not name her. He did not accuse anyone directly. But the weight of his words settled over the audience, and curious eyes turned in her direction. She felt exposed, as though someone had pulled a curtain back. After the speech, Wesley mingled smoothly. Naomi remained nearby, her gaze flicking between her brother and Clarissa. At one point, as a small group of guests discussed appearances and social media, Naomi leaned closer and murmured just loud enough for a few to hear, "It is always the people who brag about their perfect lives who have the darkest secrets." The statement hung in the air, pointed but unnamed. Later that night, when they returned home, Clarissa snapped. She threw her clutch down on the coffee table, her voice shaking. "You are destroying me, Wesley," she shouted, pacing in her heels. "Do you really think you will come out of this clean? People will blame you too. They will say you were weak, that you let this happen." Wesley stood near the window, his tuxedo jacket draped over a chair. "No," he said quietly. "They will see what they choose to see. But eventually, the truth will be clear. You built your life on lies. I'm just turning on the lights." She stopped, tears stinging her eyes. For once, there was no clever retort on her tongue. Nothing to manipulate. Just a hollow sense that the game she thought she was winning had already been lost long before. The next morning, Clarissa's phone exploded with messages. Someone had leaked details of her lavish spending and suspicious hotel stays to a few people who love gossip, and from there it had spread. Screenshots circulated in private group chats. Former admirers quietly shifted to a safer distance. The silence from those who once praised her was louder than any insult. Wesley walked past her as she sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through the damage with trembling hands. He paused at the door with his briefcase. "We are almost done here, Clarissa," he said calmly. "Almost." Then he left, closing the door with a soft click. She stared at the wood grain, feeling as if the walls themselves were closing in. 3 weeks after the gala, Wesley set the final stage. He invited Clarissa's closest family and a few mutual friends to the penthouse for what she assumed was a reconciliation meeting. When he told her, she latched onto the hope eagerly. "Good," she said. "We need to fix the rumors. We can clear the air." On the day of the gathering, she dressed carefully in a soft blue dress, choosing delicate earrings instead of their flashier counterparts. She rehearsed a speech in her mind, how she would talk about stress, misunderstandings, how people twisted things. She imagined tears at just the right moment. She believed she could still reshape the story if she controlled the scene. When she stepped into the living room, the atmosphere was nothing like she expected. Naomi was there, arms folded. Wesley's parents sat stiffly on the love seat. Clarissa's own parents, invited from out of town, looked uneasy, their eyes shadowed. Shanice sat at the edge of a chair, staring at the floor. A few mutual friends hovered near the walls, quiet. Wesley stood at the center of the room, a folder in his hand. He wore a simple shirt and slacks, nothing showy, but his posture radiated certainty. "Clarissa," he began, his voice steady, "you have told people that I am your world, that our marriage is unshakable." She forced a smile. "Because it is," she said quickly. "We are going through a rough patch, but what you did not know," he interrupted gently, "is that I have been listening." He opened the folder and pulled out a small recording device. With a quiet click, he pressed play. To Clarissa's own voice filled the room, crystal clear. "I can dump him anytime. He is here for a reason. Men like Wesley think they are in control, but really, he is just a wallet I have not emptied yet." Her laughter followed, cold and unmistakable. Gasps rose around the room. Clarissa's mother covered her mouth with her hand. Wesley's father closed his eyes briefly. Shanice buried her face in her hands, as if hearing the words again for the first time. Clarissa staggered backward, her legs losing strength. "Turn it off," she whispered, shaking. "Wesley, please, turn it off." He did not. The recording continued with her dismissive words about love, about using Wesley for vacations, handbags, and rent. 8 years of marriage reduced to a financial strategy in her own voice. When the recording finally ended, the silence that followed was suffocating. "For 8 years," Wesley said quietly, looking her in the eye, "I gave you everything. My trust, my loyalty, my time. You lied to everyone here, parading me as your devoted husband while mocking me behind closed doors, and planning to walk away with everything you could carry. You placed the device back into the folder. Tonight it ends. Clarissa's lips trembled. Wesley, please, she whispered, tears spilling over. You do not understand. I was angry that night. I was exaggerating. You know I say things when I am upset. I can fix this. We can fix this. Her father looked at her with hollow disappointment. Her mother stared at the carpet, unable to meet her eyes. The friends who had once fawned over her designer outfits now stood at a distance, as if proximity might implicate them. Wesley reached into his jacket and pulled out a single envelope. He stepped forward and placed it in her shaking hands. This is your exit, he said calmly. The divorce papers are signed. You will leave with nothing because everything you thought you had is already gone. Clarissa's breath hitched as she opened the envelope and scanned the documents. Her eyes darted from line to line, searching for loopholes, mercy, anything. There was none. The properties had been moved. The investments had been separated. The joint accounts were frozen or emptied. The life she had assumed she would cash out on was already dismantled. You planned this from the beginning, she choked out, looking up at him with desperate eyes. You married me and waited for your moment. You used me. Wesley's gaze was steady, his voice quiet enough that everyone had to lean in to hear. No, Clarissa, he said. I planned this the night I realized the woman I married never existed. The room remained still. Her parents rose slowly, unable to remain seated in the presence of such humiliation. Wesley's mother touched his arm briefly in a silent gesture of support. Naomi watched Clarissa with a mix of anger and grim satisfaction. Shanice kept her head bowed, finally understanding the full scope of what her friend had done. One by one, the guests left. Some murmured quick goodbyes to Wesley. Others slipped out in silence, unwilling to look Clarissa in the eye. She sank into the couch, papers in her lap, shoulders shaking. For the first time, there was no mask she could put on to fix it. There was only the raw, undeniable truth. Wesley walked out with his family, the door closing behind them with a solid, final sound. The penthouse, once a stage for Clarissa's performances, felt cavernous and empty. She looked around at the furniture, the art, the view she had once flaunted. None of it felt like hers anymore. It had never truly been. Later that night, Wesley stood alone on the balcony of a quiet hotel suite, overlooking the same city lights he had once admired from the penthouse. The air was cool against his face. He felt no joy, no wild triumph, only a deep, steady sense of peace. He had not raised his voice. He had not laid a hand on anyone. He had simply allowed the truth to stand in front of everyone and speak for itself. In the end, it was not rage that ended his marriage. It was patience. It was silence. It was the careful decision to let every lie leave its own trail until the pattern could not be denied. Clarissa's schemes had consumed the love that once existed. Wesley's revenge was not to ruin her with drama, but to remove himself from her illusion and leave her alone with the consequences she had created. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.